Seoul, South Korea, a city that never sleeps, a city of glittering lights, endless ambition, and towering skyscrapers that reflected the dreams of millions. Amidst this sprawling metropolis, perched on a hillside overlooking the Han River, was a mansion so grand it seemed to belong to a world entirely separate from the ordinary. This mansion was the home of Hoon-jo, a man whose wealth was beyond imagination, whose influence stretched far beyond the city, and whose life appeared perfect to anyone who looked in from the outside. Every detail of his life spoke of power, prestige, and control. Yet beneath this glittering surface, the man carried an emptiness that not even all the luxury in the world could fill. Hoon-jo was in his early 30s, tall, impeccably dressed, with sharp features that reflected both his elegance and his authority. People admired him, envied him, and sometimes feared him, but few understood the quiet struggles behind his eyes. In the mansion, everything was meticulously arranged. Servants moved silently through the halls, chandeliers sparkled with perfect symmetry, and the air smelled faintly of polished wood and expensive perfume. To outsiders, this was the pinnacle of achievement. To Hoon-jo, it was often a gilded cage. Within this palace of grandeur worked Mira, an African woman whose presence was at once invisible and essential. She was a housekeeper, a caretaker, a guardian of order in a world of perfection, but within her, a secret had been growing for years, a love she could never express. Mira had known Hoon-jo for a long time, perhaps longer than anyone else. She had seen the rare moments when he smiled without pretension, the subtle tension in his expressions when things didn't go as planned, and the tiny, almost imperceptible gestures of kindness he offered to those he deemed worthy. Each observation had been carefully catalogued in her mind, forming a map of his personality that no one else could understand. But Mira's love was silent. She was acutely aware of her position in the household, just housekeeper, and she knew that crossing the invisible boundary between servant and master was forbidden. Her heart ached in secret, yet she devoted herself to him and to the household with tireless dedication. Every morning she would wait before the mansion stirred, preparing the rooms, arranging the day's schedule, and ensuring Hoon-jo's world was seamless. Every night, she would retire to her small quarters, perched high in the mansion, gazing out at Seoul's glowing skyline, imagining what it might be like if she could step out of the shadows. Mira had witnessed many women in Hoon-jo's life, women who were drawn to his wealth and charm, but never to his heart. They arrived like flashes of light, dazzling but brief, their intentions often shallow. Mira observed silently, understanding the man beneath the wealth, the loneliness beneath the charisma, and the subtle fragility he never allowed the world to see. Over time, her love evolved into something deeper, more protective, a devotion not just for him, but for the life of the mansion, the routine, and everything that connected to him. And then came Yuna, a woman who would change everything. Yuna was modern, confident, and dazzlingly beautiful. She exuded a kind of charisma that was impossible to ignore. Where Mira's love had been quiet, patient, and invisible, Yuna's presence was bold, audacious, and public. The first time Hoon-jo met her at a social gathering, he felt a pull he could not rationalize. There was energy in her steps, a daring in her eyes, a spark that contrasted sharply with the silent devotion Mira had always offered. Their courtship was swift and intense, and in a matter of months, their engagement was announced. The city buzzed with fascination, admiration, and envy. The wedding was nothing short of spectacular, a grand event filled with sparkling gowns, crystal chandeliers, and a guest list of Seoul's elite. To all onlookers, Hoon-jo and Yuna represented perfection, beauty, wealth, and influence woven seamlessly together. Every detail was scrutinized, every moment documented. And yet, behind the cameras and the applause, Mira watched silently, her heart a mix of pride for Hoon-jo and sorrow for her unspoken love. During the wedding, Mira moved quietly through the crowd, ensuring every detail was flawless. She adjusted lighting, polished surfaces, arranged flowers, and straightened linens, all while keeping a careful distance from the celebrations. Her eyes occasionally fell on Hoon-jo, catching moments that no one else saw, a fleeting frown, a tension in his jaw, a subtle sigh. She understood him in ways Yuna never could, yet she remained invisible, a shadow in a world of brilliance. Yuna, radiant and confident, commanded an attention effortlessly. She smiled, laughed, and exuded charm, her ambition visible in every glance and gesture. Mira observed quietly, knowing that while Yuna could captivate Hoon-jo's social world, she could never comprehend the depths of his private world, the layers of loneliness, the quiet yearning, and the need for understanding that Mira alone had seen. As the evening progressed, Mira had found a quiet corner, momentarily alone, and reflected on the years she had devoted to loving from the shadows. She knew that life was about to take a turn, one that would bring joy, turmoil, and challenges she had never anticipated. A child would soon arrive, an innocent soul who would change the mansion forever. The tiny heartbeat of this child would ripple through every relationship, revealing hidden truths and testing bonds in ways none of them could foresee. Mira's heart trembled with a mixture of anticipation and dread. She had spent years protecting Hoonjo, but soon she would be called to protect another life. The line between duty and love, between care and devotion, was about to blur. And Mira understood that when the child arrived, her choices, her courage, and her devotion would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. Standing in the shadowed corner, watching the couple exchange smiles, Mira whispered to herself, barely audible, "No matter what happens, I will protect him. And I will protect the life that comes into this world, no matter the cost." Because Mira understood a truth that few others did. Love is not about possession or recognition. It is about sacrifice, patience, and the willingness to place another's safety and happiness above your own. And soon, the lessons of love, loyalty, and courage would be tested, changing every life in the mansion forever. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. The mansion was silent in the early hours of the morning. The usual glitter of luxury seemed subdued, almost tense, as if the walls themselves could sense the change coming. Mira stood in the nursery, preparing the room for the newest life that was about to enter. There was a gentle anticipation in the air, a fragile hope wrapped in layers of tension. Hoonjo and Yuna had awaited this day with excitement and expectation. Their union, the public wedding, the admiration of the city had all culminated in this moment. A child was coming into their world, and the mansion held its breath, waiting for life to arrive. When the baby was finally born, the first cries were loud and clear, echoing through the pristine halls. Mira's trained hands and calm presence guided the process, ensuring that every need of mother and child was attended to. But as the initial joy of birth settled, subtle differences became apparent. The baby's features were unique: a flattened nose, a slightly elevated neck, and the tongue often protruding. Even more, it became clear that his mental development might not follow the typical path. The doctor gently explained that the child had endometriosis, a rare condition affecting both physical and cognitive development. Yuna's reaction was immediate and shut. Her eyes, once sparkling with anticipation, now narrowed with disappointment and fear. The elegance, grace, and modern ideals she carried so confidently seemed to collapse under the weight of reality. She could not reconcile the child before her with the perfect image she had imagined. "Oh, I can't, this isn't what I signed up for," she said, her voice trembling with a mixture of shock, anger, and denial. Without waiting for explanation or understanding, she made a decision that would shatter the fragile balance of the household. She left. She left the mansion, leaving Hoonjo and the newborn behind. Hoonjo, caught between shock and societal pressure, reacted differently. He looked at the child with a conflicted mixture of disbelief and concern. The idea of imperfection, of something that could reflect poorly on his name, his wealth, and his image, troubled him deeply. His mind raced with thoughts of reputation and control. We cannot let anyone see this. Not yet. Not like this," he muttered, his voice low, almost fearful. He moved with calculated care to ensure that the child remained hidden from any prying eyes. The mansion, which had always been a symbol of openness and display, suddenly became a place of secrecy, shadows, and careful navigation. Mira, however, was different. Where fear and embarrassment might have guided others, her heart was filled with a quiet determination. She looked at the tiny face of the baby, at the vulnerable hands and the innocent eyes, and knew what she must do. This child would need more than protection from the world. He would need love, understanding, and patience, the very qualities that Mira carried in abundance. As Hoonjo tried to organize the child's concealment, Mira moved closer. She cradled the baby gently in her arms, feeling a bond forming instantly, unspoken yet undeniable. She whispered softly to the newborn, lulled by the carried warmth, comfort, and reassurance. "You are safe, little one. I will protect you, no matter what," Mira murmured, her voice steady, her heart swelling with a protective love she had never felt for anyone else before. Days passed, and Mira became the primary caretaker in a way no one else could. She attended to every need of the child, feeding, changing, comforting, and nurturing. Hoonjo remained distant, torn between societal expectations and his own conflicted emotions. He provided materially, but emotionally, he struggled to connect. His mind, clouded by shame and concern for his reputation, often saw the child as a problem to be managed rather than a life to nurture. Mira noticed the tension in the air each time Hoonjo entered the nursery. The child, sensing unease, would cry out, and Mira would soothe him, whispering words of calm and encouragement. The love she felt was both maternal and protective, bridging the gap that no one else could. She began to understand that her role in the child's life was far more crucial than anyone in the mansion realized. Meanwhile, Yuna's absence left a void that could not be filled by wealth or grandeur. Her rejection had forced the household to face a reality they had not anticipated. Love and family were not always about appearances or social perfection. They were about care, commitment, and the courage to face challenges with patience and grace. For Mira, each day brought new lessons. She learned to anticipate the child's needs before he even cried, to read the subtle signals of discomfort or joy, to provide an environment that encouraged both safety and growth. Slowly, the baby responded to her presence, his eyes lighting up when he saw her, his tiny hands reaching out for the comfort only she could provide. Hunjo, observing from a distance, began to notice the extraordinary bond forming. Despite his attempts to remain detached, he could not ignore the unwavering devotion Mira showed. It was a love that demanded no recognition, that asked for no reward, pure, patient, and unshakable. The mansion, once a place of control and perfection, had become a sanctuary of subtle rebellion against societal expectations. Here, love was not dictated by appearances or status, but by the willingness to nurture, protect, and endure. Mira's presence transformed the environment into a space where the child could grow safely, shielded from the harsh judgments and rigid expectations of the world outside. As the days turned into weeks, Mira's role deepened. She became the invisible mother, the guardian of the child's fragile life, and the silent strength behind his growth. And in her heart, a promise solidified. No matter the challenges, no matter the obstacles, she would protect this child from harm, loneliness, and neglect. Because Mira understood a profound truth. The value of life is not measured by perfection, appearances, or societal approval. It is measured by love, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication. And as this child took his first tentative steps into the world, Mira knew that the next chapters of their lives would test that truth in ways none of them could yet imagine. The mansion, once a place of structured elegance, now echoed with tension and suppressed emotions. Hunjo, a man who had controlled every aspect of his life, now faced a challenge that tested not just his patience, but his very sense of identity. The birth of the child, so different from the perfect image he had imagined, had triggered something dark within him, and anger that simmered beneath his polished exterior. It was a quiet afternoon when the inevitable confrontation occurred. The baby, barely a year old, gurgled and reached out, innocent and unaware of the storm around him. Hunjo, already burdened with frustration, stress, and fear of societal judgment, lashed out. "You are nothing but trouble," he snapped, his voice sharp and cold. In a moment of irrational anger, he struck the child lightly across the face, a reflex born of fear and shame rather than true malice. But to Mira, it was unacceptable. Mira had spent countless hours nurturing and protecting this fragile life, seeing the potential and worth in every small gesture the baby made. The sight of him being struck, even once, ignited a fire within her, a mixture of righteous anger, fear for the child's safety, and determination that no harm would come under her watch. "I will not let you do this. Not now, not ever," Mira said, her voice trembling but firm. She scooped the child into her arms, feeling the small body tremble against her chest, and with every heartbeat, her resolve strengthened. In that moment, Mira made a decision that would change the course of all their lives. She could no longer trust the mansion, its rules, or the man who, despite his wealth, had shown that his love was conditional. She knew she had to leave, to take the child away from a place that had become dangerous, and to create a life where he could grow safely, loved, and without fear. That night, under the cover of darkness, Mira had packed what she could carry: clothes, essentials, and the few personal items she had managed to accumulate over the years. She moved quietly through the corridors, avoiding servants who might question her departure. Her heart raced with fear, but also with determination. The child, sensing her urgency, clung to her, comforted by the warmth and safety of her arms. As they slipped through the gates and into the streets of Seoul, Mira had felt a mixture of liberation and trepidation. The city was alive with lights and noise, but for her and the child, it was just a passage to freedom, a path away from the mansion, away from Hunjo's conditional love, and toward a future of her own making. Mira did not have a plan for wealth or luxury. What she had was courage, resourcefulness, and an unshakable commitment to the child's well-being. She navigated the city with quiet determination, avoiding attention, and eventually found her way to a remote coastal village, far from the pressures and judgments of Seoul. The village was humble, its houses small, the streets simple, and the people kind but cautious. Here, Mira began to rebuild. She found work in modest homes, offering her skills in cooking, cleaning, and childcare. Every coin she earned was carefully saved for the child's needs. She made a small room near the shore their temporary home, furnished simply with love, care, and patience. The waves outside became a lullaby for the baby, the salty breeze a reminder of freedom and possibility. The child, despite the sudden change in environment, responded to Mira's care with trust and affection. His eyes, wide with curiosity, followed her every movement. He learned quickly, exploring the small garden, touching the sand, and watching the seagulls with fascination. Mira encouraged his exploration, always attentive, always ready to catch him if he stumbled. At night, as they sat by the window, Mira would whisper softly, sharing stories of courage, love, and resilience. "We are safe here, little one. No one can harm you here. I will always protect you," she said, rocking him gently. The child would drift asleep in her arms, the fear from earlier days melting away in the warmth of her love. Despite the hardships of the coastal village, meager food, long working hours, and the constant struggle to make ends meet, Mira's determination never wavered. Every challenge was met with resilience, every obstacle a test of her resolve. She knew that one day, the child would grow strong, confident, and aware of the love that had shielded him from the harshness of the world. Hunjo, meanwhile, remained unaware of the depth of the bond Mira had formed with the child. His pride, shame, and preoccupation with social reputation kept him distant. The mansion, now empty of Yuna's presence and Mira's vigilant care, felt hollow. But in the coastal village, life had a rhythm that wealth could never buy, a rhythm of love, care, and genuine human connection. Mira often thought of Hunjo, wondering if he would ever understand what true love and responsibility meant. But her focus remained on the child, who was beginning to smile, crawl, and discover the world with wide-eyed wonder. Each laugh, each step, and each moment of growth was a victory, a reassurance that the choice she had made to escape, to protect, to nurture was right. And so, in a small, humble home by the sea, Mira and the child began a new chapter of life. One built not on wealth, reputation, or societal expectation, but on love, courage, and the unbreakable bond between the protector and the protected. It was the first true taste of freedom, a life where the child could grow safely, learn, and dream without fear. But as Mira watched the child sleeping peacefully that night, she knew deep down that the story was far from over. The past had a way of catching up, and the child's father Hunjo was a force that could not be ignored forever. And when the time came, the choices made in the mansion would collide with the life Mira had built here by the sea. Life in the small coastal village settled into a quiet rhythm. Mira, despite the hardships, devoted herself entirely to the child. Each day was a careful balance of survival and nurturing, work and learning, love and discipline. The little home they had made was modest, but within its walls, there was warmth, laughter, and a sense of safety that Mira had sworn the child would never lose. The child, whose name Mira had chosen with care, began to grow in this environment of patient care. With every passing month, he became more aware of the world around him. He learned to walk on the sandy paths near their home, chasing seagulls and exploring small gardens with curiosity and wonder. Mira guided him patiently, always vigilant, always ready to catch him before he fell. "Slowly, little one. Take your time. The world will wait for you," she would whisper, her voice steady and comforting. Education began early, though informal at first. Mira would teach him letters drawn in the sand, numbers with shells and pebbles, and the sounds of words repeated gently until they took root in his mind. Despite his condition, the child showed curiosity, a spark of intelligence that responded beautifully to love and attention. Mira's methods were unconventional, but they worked. She adapted, learned, and invented ways to reach him that no traditional school could have provided. Neighbors began to notice the child's remarkable progress. Mira, though humble and reserved, earned respect through her diligence, patience, and unwavering devotion. The child, bright-eyed and energetic, became a small figure of joy in the village, his laughter mingling with the crash of waves on the shore. Mira's love and guidance allowed him to thrive, even in a world far removed from the luxury and prestige of Seoul. The child's personality began to emerge, shaped by both the challenges of life and the constant nurturing of Mira. He was curious, compassionate, and occasionally stubborn, traits Mira welcomed and guided with gentle firmness. Every milestone, his first word, his first step, his first life was celebrated, a small victory against the hardships they had faced. Mira also taught him about resilience. Life would not always be easy. People might judge, circumstances might be harsh, and mistakes might happen. But through it all, love, patience, and courage would carry them forward. She told stories of courage from her own childhood, tales of perseverance and integrity, hoping to instill in him the values that would guide his future. "The world may not always be kind, but your heart can be," she would say, brushing sand from his hair as they walked along the shoreline. As the child grew, Mira's role evolved. She was no longer just a protector. She became a teacher, a guide, a companion, and, most importantly, a constant source of love and reassurance. Each night, she would hold him close, whispering lullabies and softly promising that he was safe, cherished, and worthy of all the care she could give. Despite the simplicity of their life, there were moments of pure happiness. Mira would take him to the market, letting him interact with local children, teaching him social skills, sharing small joys, and encouraging his independence. Their bond was extraordinary, a connection forged not by blood alone, but by choice, commitment, and unwavering love. Yet, the shadow of the past still lingered in Mira's mind. She knew that one day, Hunjo, the father, might return, whether drawn by curiosity, guilt, or something deeper. She prepared herself for that eventuality not with fear, but with determination. The child's safety, happiness, and emotional well-being remained her utmost priority. Every challenge Mira faced strengthened their bond. When illness struck the child, she stayed awake for nights on end, tending to him with care and patience. When hunger threatened, she worked tirelessly to provide meals, using creativity to stretch meager resources. Every obstacle became an opportunity to teach resilience, compassion, and the power of love. By the time the child turned 10, he had grown into a lively, curious, and perceptive boy. His laughter was infectious, his curiosity boundless, and his love for Mira immeasurable. She had given him not just survival, but a life filled with warmth, learning, and the ability to dream. He knew he was safe, loved, and understood, a rare gift that many children born into wealth or comfort never truly receive. Mira often reflected on the path they had taken. They had escaped a life of conditional love and societal judgment to create something meaningful and enduring. The mansion, the wealth, and even the father's distant presence seemed like a different world entirely, replaced by the simplicity, struggle, and profound joy of their coastal life. "We may not have riches or grandeur," she said softly one evening as the child slept, "but we have each other. And that is more than enough." This simple, steadfast love became the foundation of the child's growth. Mira's teachings, patience, and unwavering support melded him into a resilient, compassionate, and joyful young soul. Every day, every challenge, and every triumph reinforced the truth that love, not wealth, status, or perfection, was the most powerful force in the world. And as they watched the sunset over the waves, Mira knew that their journey was only beginning. The child would grow stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever challenges the world might bring, but always anchored by the love and sacrifices that had brought him this far. For Mira, this chapter was more than survival. It was the beginning of a life built on courage, care, and unwavering commitment, a life where the child could flourish, dream, and discover the world safely, and where love, in its purest form, reigned supreme. The reunion at the market had ignited emotions that Mira had long kept under control, and for Hoonjo, it had stirred feelings he could no longer ignore. He had seen his child, felt the pull of paternal love, and realized, painfully, the consequences of years spent prioritizing pride, wealth, and reputation over care and connection. But Hoonjo also knew that love alone would not mend what had been broken. Mira's trust had been earned over 10 years, and now it would not be given lightly. Determined, he began to approach slowly, cautiously. His attempts were measured, respectful, but Mira remained vigilant. She had watched men try and fail before. Empty words and gestures were not enough. The boy had grown numb to her guidance, and she would not allow anyone, not even his father, to disrupt the stability they had built together. "You cannot just show up and expect everything to be forgiven," Mira said, her eyes sharp, her tone unwavering. "He is not yours to claim by right alone. You will have to prove that you can love him properly, that you can respect what we've built here." Hoonjo nodded, swallowing his pride. He understood, finally, that this was not about control, appearances, or reputation. This was about love, patience, and commitment. He began to spend time with the boy, not forcing interactions, but showing up consistently gentle, patient, and humble. The child, cautious but curious, observed Hoonjo carefully. There was a weariness in his eyes, shaped by years of protection and care under Mira's guidance. But there was also an instinctive connection, something innate that drew him toward the father he had never truly known. Slowly, he began to respond. Small gestures at first, a shared laugh over a clumsy stumble, tentative conversation about the sea and the animals that lived along the shore. Hoonjo faced his own challenges. Years of distance, pride, and absence had left scars. He had to confront his mistakes, acknowledge the harm he had caused, and find a way to reconcile his image with the reality before him. Mira watched carefully, allowing him small steps, but never compromising the child's safety or emotional well-being. "You must earn his trust," she reminded herself as much as him. "And you must earn mine as well." Days turned into weeks, and through consistent effort, Hoonjo began to demonstrate change. He helped with chores, assisted in teaching, and, most importantly, listened. He asked questions, learned about the child's interests, fears, and strengths, and showed genuine care that went beyond words. Slowly, the child began to mirror these feelings, offering smiles, conversation, and tentative affection. Yet Mira remained cautious. She had seen love claimed and lost, promises made and broken. Every time Hoonjo attempted a gesture, she measured it against years of consistency and action. She tested him, setting small boundaries, observing his patience, his dedication, and his willingness to place the child's needs above his own pride. "We are not going back to the mansion," she said firmly one evening. "Everything you once valued, the wealth, the appearances, they do not matter here. You are judged by what you do, not by what you own." Hoonjo accepted this with humility. He realized that redemption would not be instantaneous. It would take effort, consistency, and selflessness. He embraced the challenge, not as a task to regain status, but as a mission to earn the love and trust of his child and Mira. The emotional tension was palpable. Every interaction was layered with history, regret, and cautious hope. Mira guided the child, teaching him to navigate this complex relationship with care, ensuring that he would feel safe even as new bonds began to form. Hoonjo, in turn, learned to read subtle cues, to respect boundaries, and to place the child's needs above his own desire for immediate reconciliation. Over time, small victories began to emerge. The boy laughed at a shared joke, offered Hoonjo a hand in helping with simple tasks, or accepted comfort when hurt or frightened. Each moment was a step toward healing, a tangible proof that consistent love and care could bridge even the deepest gaps. Mira, witnessing this gradual change, began to allow herself to hope. She saw genuine effort, humility, and a desire to do right by both the child and herself. Yet she also remained guarded, reminding herself that the past could not be undone and that trust, once broken, required not just words but years of proof. Hoonjo, too, began to understand the depth of Mira's love and sacrifice. He saw the child's happiness, growth, and confidence as a testament to her unwavering dedication. Slowly, a new respect developed not just for her abilities, but for the moral strength, courage, and heart she had shown over a decade of hardship. "I see now," he said quietly one evening, watching the boy sleep peacefully, "what I have lost and what I must earn." In this coastal village, far from the opulence of Seoul, the slow rebuilding of trust and love continued. Hoonjo learned patience, Mira maintained vigilance, and the boy, nurtured in both safety and affection, began to open his heart to the father he had never known. This chapter of their lives was one of struggle, understanding, and redemption. It was a delicate dance of emotions, where each step mattered and each action spoke volumes. The bonds being formed were not instantaneous or easy, but they were real, grounded in the trials they had endured and the love that had been patiently cultivated over 10 years. And as the sun set over the tranquil waves, casting golden light on their small home, a fragile hope blossomed. Hoonjo was learning what it truly meant to be a father. Mira was learning to trust again. And the child, innocent yet wise beyond his years, was discovering that love when patient, consistent, and genuine could heal even the deepest wounds. The journey was far from over, but the foundation had been laid. Trust, love, and family were beginning to grow where once there had only been fear, absence, and regret. And in that growth lay the promise of a future they could all embrace together. The waves lapped gently against the shore, echoing the rhythm of a life that had been painstakingly rebuilt over a decade. Mira stood at the edge of the small garden, watching the boy play, his laughter mingling with the distant call of seagulls. Nearby, Hoonjo approached quietly, a mixture of nervousness and determination in his steps. The months since their reunion had been a delicate process. Hoonjo had spent every day showing consistency, patience, and genuine love. He had helped with chores, learned the child's routines, and most importantly, respected every boundary Mira had set. Slowly, the boy had begun to trust him, offering small smiles, gestures, and moments of connection that filled Hoonjo's heart with hope and determination. Yet Mira's heart remained guarded. She had given 10 years of unwavering care and love to the child. She had protected him from danger, neglect, and emotional harm. How could she easily forgive the father who had once failed to protect him? How could she allow him to enter their lives fully after all that pain and absence? I cannot let him down again, Mira whispered to herself as she watched Hoonjo sit beside the boy. Hoonjo, aware of the challenges, had taken his time. He had learned that love could not be demanded, it had to be earned. And he was ready to dedicate not just words, but his actions, to prove himself. I will do everything it takes, he said quietly, speaking to Mira more than the boy. Not for status, not for reputation, but for him and Fee. The boy, sensing the sincerity in Hoonjo's tone, ran into his arms without hesitation. The moment was simple, yet profound, a bridge spanning 10 years of absence, pain, and longing. Mira, standing a few feet away, felt the walls around her heart begin to crack. She had feared this day, yet now she saw genuine love and dedication in every gesture Hoonjo made. Over the following weeks, Hoonjo continued to prove himself. He shared in daily life, celebrated small victories, and learned to place the child's happiness above his own desires. He approached Mira with humility, acknowledging past mistakes and demonstrating his commitment to family. I know I cannot erase the past, he said one evening, hands gently folded. But I promise to protect, love, and cherish both of you for the rest of my life. Mira observed his actions, his patience, and his unwavering dedication. She saw the transformation of a man who had once been proud and detached into someone capable of humility, care, and selfless love. Slowly, she allowed herself to hope. Slowly, she began to consider the possibility of a future where they could all live as a family, not just in convenience, but in love. The child, now older and perceptive, began to refer to Hoonjo as father more frequently, understanding the man's efforts and recognizing the sincerity of his heart. Their bond, fragile at first, had grown into a relationship built on trust, love, and shared experiences. Mira, seeing this, realized that love had taken root where it had once seemed impossible. And then came the day of true acceptance. Mira stood on the sandy shore, watching the sunset, as Hoonjo approached, holding a small, simple ring. His hands were steady, his eyes filled with sincerity. Mira, he said softly, voice carrying the weight of a decade of regret, love, and hope. I cannot change the past, but I can build a future. I want to be your partner, your equal, and I fathered to the boy I should have always been there for. Will you marry me? Mira's heart raced. She had imagined this moment countless times, yet the reality was more profound than any fantasy. She thought of the years she had dedicated to protecting and raising the child, the sacrifices she had made, and the love she had nurtured. She also saw the transformation in Hoonjo, the man who had finally understood the meaning of love, patience, and family. For a long moment, she remained silent, weighing the depth of her feelings, the safety and happiness of the child, and the sincerity of the man before her. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. Yes, she said quietly, tears brimming in her eyes. We will build this family together. The boy cheered, his laughter filling the evening there, as Hoonjo lifted him into a gentle hug. The three of them stood together, a unit forged not by wealth, status, or convenience, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to forgive and rebuild. The wedding was simple, held in the village that had become their home. There was no grandeur, no social spectacle, just the people who mattered most, Mira, Hunjo, and the boy who had survived, thrived, and witnessed the power of love. The ceremony was filled with quiet emotion, laughter, and a deep sense of closure for the decade of struggle and separation. As the sun set on the day, Mira and Hunjo stood together, hands intertwined, watching the boy run along the shoreline, his laughter echoing across the waves. They knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but together, they had the strength, love, and unity to face anything. "We are a family," Hunjo whispered, pressing a gentle kiss to Mira's forehead. She smiled, looking at him and then at the boy, realizing that love had not only healed past wounds but had created a future filled with hope, joy, and unwavering connection. In the end, the mansion, the wealth, and the social expectations faded into memory. What remained was a home built on dedication, a family bound by choice, and a love that had survived absence, hardship, and years of waiting. Mira, Hunjo, and the boy had found what many searched for their entire lives: trust, commitment, and the extraordinary power of unconditional love. And as the waves continued their eternal dance against the shore, the family walked hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future might bring, together, as one.